It's Footy Prime, everyone. It's Tuesday. We have actually a guest coming up later. I'm excited about this. A good friend, a guy that's been part of the Canadian soccer fabric for years. He travels the world watching Canada play, watching his beloved TFC play. Brad Humber, former president of the Red Patch Boys, proud member of the Red Patch Boys. We thought we'd just get like a perspective from the stands at TFC, what the feeling is, obviously the fan unrest, the statements that came out from both Keith Pelly and also from the supporters groups last week as well. Just kind of get that kind of perspective. But to start with, we have got to, I'll apologize. I'm going to apologize here. First of all, Dubs was not part of this conversation yesterday, so
neither was Jimmy.
You're off the hook.
Let's be honest.
Nor was Jimmy. No, Jimmy wasn't either. So you guys are off the hook. Jimmy's not even here today. He was so appalled. But listen, sometimes I forget that we're actually speaking to a pretty big audience here. I sometimes think that it's just the 4 or 5 or 6 of us having a good old chat, and we're idiots. Yesterday, we probably went a little bit too far when talking about the owner of Nottingham Forest. We did go too far. Simple as that. We thought it was funny at the time. It probably wasn't. In fact, it wasn't funny. So I'm going to apologize on behalf of myself. I'll let Wonger and Craig do the same if they care to. But yeah, we went too far. And we don't often apologize because we're so rarely in the wrong. But I think on this particular occasion, we probably shouldn't have gone down that certain route that we went down. Is that fair to say?
Yeah,
Absolutely
we should have just stuck with the owner bullying the manager instead of his weight.
Yes.
And it did devolve from a couple of comments, and someone had mentioned about fat shaming and completely apologize. But they did also mention about their clothes, and I just want to say I'm still going to make comments about people's clothes.
It started with that. It did start with the t-shirt.
It did,
and it went from there.
And we devolve, and so apologies. We are genuinely, we offended people, and I feel bad for that, and I want to be better. So let's all try and be better. I'll speak for the 5 of us, the 6 of us. Dubs, let's try and be better.
Okay, I'll do better.
You, Dubs.
Yeah. If I could just add, and this isn't in defense, and then I think it's right to apologize for what could be perceived as fat shaming. And I think it was. So that went too far. But 2 is the point about his appearance. You can dress however you like, right? If you're a rich owner. But I think it added to the optics of the bullying because his dress and his choice of attire lent to it being more unhinged than if he were dressed maybe more quote unquote appropriately. He's free to wear whatever he chooses, but kind of the white t-shirt and just the way that he looked on the pitch, nothing to do with his own stature and his weight, but his choice of clothing, I think lent to it being perceived as slightly more kind of out of control and unhinged.
It was the juxtaposition of it too.
Yeah.
And just for people to understand, I have never seen, and this is what the juxtaposition for me was, I've never seen an owner who's dressed like that. I've only been watching Prem for the last 5 years. Every time I see one of these owners, they're billionaires, and you can dress how you wish, but they're usually tie, suit, or at least a beautifully put together kit with a blazer. So it was very, to your point, Dubs. And I'd also like to apologize to Dubs, Jimmy, and JC, who didn't play part of this. And, I don't want you guys to ever step in to things that one of other people have done or said, because we're all accountable. We all have agency, and we didn't have to go down that road. So apologies to everyone. And yeah, so we give us another chance. How about that? To be better.
Yeah, listen, I don't often apologize for offending people because, generally speaking, people are offended is their problem. That's really how I see things. But in this case, yes, that was uncalled for.
I think we had a commenter on YouTube to steer it back to the apology and what you guys were addressing yesterday, and in terms of the owner admonishing a Nuno on the pitch. Is that it going down that road where you're talking about somebody's appearance outside of what they've selected in terms of their clothing? Because I think that's fair. Like you're in a public position, or you're in a position where you're going to be judged by the public, I think it distracted from what you guys were meaning to get at, which is that that's not a good look, no matter what club you're at and no matter what you look like. So I think that is what I think we can do better collectively as Footy Prime, is just sort of stick to the issues and give our opinions on that.
I'll say this though, if I'm a billionaire owner or just a billionaire in general, I don't give a shit what people think about me, about what I'm wearing. I'm going to wear what I feel I'm going to wear. That's why I said to you guys, he looks like the most un-owner looking owner I've ever seen because of the big t-shirt. And that's just a t-shirt comment, right? Not the flash suit. And like you said, the tie. The John Henry is an old man, but always looks slick. But is that important? It really isn't important, is it?
No. I think more and more now, like in pro sports, like my kids being in the culture of elite sports or what we deem to be elite sports, and then showing up to the arena and kids having to be in a suit and tie, like, get over yourselves, people. It has nothing to do with team culture and being a quote unquote professional, because you're seeing it now. The pendulum swing completely to the other end of the spectrum, where they're showing up in, glorified sweatsuits and toques. And yes, you still see, a suit and tie here and there, but it's come down a bit and it's more casual. And I think we need to get away from the fact that a professional, whether you're in the front office or a pro athlete, or even just, everybody in daily life, that you have to be wearing a suit and tie, or you have to be wearing a blazer, right? Like, we need to get over that.
Although I have to tell you, there is some culture building in everyone wearing the same outfit to show up on a road trip.
But why can it not be a tracksuit?
Right? I agree. But because you're also representing, I'll give you, when you played at Nebraska, the bastion of higher learning in mid America. I know for us at McGill, it was a suit and tie and a McGill tie. Okay. And there was something about it that, even though there was something about being forced to dress up, which I went to public school, not like Sharms, where he went to Catholic school and I had to wear those little long shorts.
Kilts.
Yeah.
I wore kilts.
Kilts. Yeah. And, but there was something about, every Thursday when you're going on a road trip, dressing up to go on the two buses that picked us up, the stinky O lineman and D lineman on one bus and the cool cats on the other. And it was always offensive, by the way. Pardon me, that is offensive.
I'm offended by that.
Depends what line you're on.
That changes our apology, you clown. There is something about the community and that culture building up and people seeing you as representing their school. And
yeah, but you've been conditioned to that, Wonger. That you've been conditioned that to wear a suit is authority and important, right?
No. It was about representing your school. It was
but you can do that by wearing other attire, though. I think we're in this day and age, the suit has to be on the way out. I can't stand suits. I hate seeing them on TV.
I look good in a suit.
You can feel good in the suit occasionally. At a funeral, love wearing a suit. Feel pretty good. Love funerals.
The trackie, you wear the trackie to the funeral.
I spend, like Dubs, I spend half my life in rinks these days. Because my daughter, and I see all these 12, 13, 14-year-old boys coming in their suits. And I, at first, think that's ridiculous. I mentioned that to some people, and they kind of hammer me. Well, what do you mean this? No, it's really important. It's great. It's discipline. But I used to love wearing a tracksuit, a team tracksuit. When I played rugby back in the day, nothing made me prouder than wearing a team tracksuit. We're playing sport, for Christ's sakes. Why do we need to wear a suit? Wear a team trackie. Look good. Look well put together. Don't be a slob. But I don't think we have to move away from suits. We just have to in every part of society.
And a tragically hip quote comes to mind and loosening my grip on Bobby Orr in Fireworks. And it's loosening your grip on what's antiquated and what's associated with being professional and being traditional, right? And being more inclusive in terms of, it's already so costly. We've already priced out so many athletes and so many families out of a sport like hockey. You make the same argument for any of these other elite sports, right? And then now you're going to mandate that a kid who's going to grow out of his suit in 6 months, that you have to drop $300 right? Like, I mean, and there's a range there, but it's ridiculous. It's so silly. And if we're being inclusive, it's include those people, pay for a tracksuit. It's so much more cost effective and it makes more sense for families' budgets. But for women's sports, what's the equivalent of a suit and a McGill red tie? What is that? So the great equalizer is a polo. And it's something with the team badge. And you can still subscribe to that. You can still create the same ownership of it and commitment to it without it being a suit and a tie.
I would agree
in my
with that.
opinion.
I know at the professional level, we had managers that would be okay with tracksuits, and other ones that wanted us to wear suits, want us to look smart when we showed up at away games, especially.
But
you guys have a lot of leeway.
With suit suppliers, right, Craig? You'd have an official suit supplier, I would imagine, in the Prem.
Yes,
you weren't paying for those suits.
Sometimes
you could.
Yeah,
I understand if you got a sponsor. Suit. I mean, I hate suits. I made that point. But if you have a sponsor comes aboard, a tailor, and say, "Well, we'll sponsor this team." Okay,
Zed
money from it. Yeah.
I always remember Sportsnet's was always Zed Zegna, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, you know what's the most ridiculous thing though ever is when you and I've been this person, I've been this guy, on the sideline of a football pitch on TV, interviewing a sweaty athlete in like 25 degrees heat, and I'm wearing a freaking suit. It's the stupidest thing. And you want to try and break down the barrier between yourself and the athlete. It isn't easy when you look like a banker or a lawyer. In most of these guys, lawyers, they're in court usually, right? That's the way that they don't, appreciate that. But it's why not a golf shirt? Some networks will allow golf shirts. Sportsnet did towards the end when I was there. But often I was told, well, it's a big day today. It's a big match. You better wear the suit and boot it. Come on, really? Athletes sweaty, wearing shorts, maybe not even wearing a t-shirt.
You look good in a suit, though, Sharms. You always
everyone can look good in a suit.
I'm just saying, I would rather see you in a suit than looking like Barney Rubble up in the top left corner right now.
You know what? I also smell like goose shit right now.
What?
Oh.
I just came back from taking my dogs for a walk, and the big dog found this freaking pile of disgusting goose shit and rolled all around in it. So I had to get home and hose her down in the back garden with like dog shampoo and get it. And so on my hands, I do smell like a blend of dog shampoo and goose shit right now. I'm disgusting. I need a
That's
shower.
your new flavor for Sharman's Proper.
Goose shit.
That's what the pod stepped in yesterday. That's a pile of goose shit.
Yes. And we have to mention while we're talking about dogs, JC is at the vet with Mira, who's been having a problem. It's his older adopted dog. Wonderful pit bull mix and one of the most gentle mums you ever met. So thinking of you, Mira.
My two cats are being castrated today.
Thinking of you, cats.
Like really thinking of you.
Yeah. Like what happened? I was so good before I came in here.
I was taunting them this morning because they're such assholes. Saying, you're all full of swagger now, aren't you? Hey, scratching the furniture, being pricks, howling at me at 4 a.m. Just you wait. Just you wait.
Yes, their egos left at the vets like Craig's was.
Yeah, I was neutered pretty much.
No, you were neutered well after that. You were neutered once the podcast began. Anyway, listen, Brad.
Don't ball shame me.
Don't ball shame me.
So we're going to talk to Brad about, like I mentioned, TFC and just what the feeling is in the stands and the supporter section. Big win on the weekend, much better. We mentioned Lorenzo Insigne, how he really did perform in that match. You had to give the guy credit when it's due. But can they build on this? That is the big question. There's been these hopes and these moments in the past, of course, and it hasn't been built on. But I want to ask Brad about in the stands ahead of Cincinnati tomorrow, I think, isn't it? Which is a huge match. How will the fans embrace the team coming off a win? Or are they kind of over that? Is this all towards ownership?
What's the word, Dubs? I saw your microwave go off, but what's the feeling in?
Did you just say my microwave?
No, your microphone.
You said microwave.
Did I?
You said microwave.
Yeah.
Well, beep. Go get your microwave popcorn, please. What's the word in? What's the vibe in Montreal after that win?
I think they're seeing it similar to the win that they had in Canadian Championships as something to build on. And then they fell short against Philly, but it was important. And again, this is an away victory, right? And I had mentioned on like my regular hit on local radio on the Friday that playing at Yankee Stadium, where it's such a small pitch, when you're walking in there, you definitely have a home team advantage if you're NYCFC. Like they understand how to play teams on that pitch, right? It's just a postage stamp. It's ridiculous. But from a team's perspective, like CF Montreal, where they just need to mitigate individual errors, there's no better place to try to rectify that when you've got less space to operate. So you're essentially giving away less if you're still making those mistakes. But I think you finally saw from Prince Owusu, like, you know that he's not a clinical finisher, but you saw a moment of brilliance. And that's what this team has been lacking, especially offensively. You saw it in Giacomo Vrioni with that worldie that he scored against TFC. And then you've got the service from Tom Pierce, but you're just in the final third. They haven't been able to generate a whole lot that way. They've been creating chances, but nothing that looked overly threatening. So now you're finally seeing that. So hopefully offensively, at least in the way of goal production, they're on the right track.
How frustrating is, before Brad jumps on, how frustrating is, I mean, you've played in the back line, you played mid.
Yep.
When your front third can't put it in the net, can't put it like open opportunities that they're missing over and over again. What's that like?
It's difficult, and Forrest can speak to this as well as a goalkeeper, where you're holding up your end of the bargain.
Yes,
which is shoring up defensively, making sure you're airtight, you're well organized, you're communicating. But that can only go so far, right? Because it just takes like a half a second, like a forward, a striker that hasn't done anything for 90 minutes, and then they come to life in stoppage time, and all of your work is all for naught at that point, right? Because they've broken through. So you need somebody who's going to be a game breaker on your own side. And when you don't have that, it can be really difficult and frustrating.
And make you... Sorry, go ahead, Sharman.
It's Dubs. It's just like being a podcast host, isn't it, Dubs? You know,
yes.
When you lay it out there for them, and all they got to do is finish it, and they just sit there.
Yep.
Nothing good happens.
On,
you know
guys.
how they say nothing good happens after 1 a.m.? Nothing happens good on Footy Prime after Dubs leaves the podcast.
Yeah, oh, come on. You're giving me way too much credit.
Hey, we got a guest. My good mate, Brad Humber. Hey, Humber, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
No problem. Happy to be here.
Who do you know here? You know Craig, right? Don't you? I think.
Yeah, of course we do.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Sportsnet back in the day. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Do you know Wonger? You met Wonger yet?
No.
Never met. No. Hi, Brad.
Amy?
Oh,
Okay. Yeah. This is Wonger. This is Amy.
Hi, Brad. Nice to meet you.
As mentioned, he's a good friend, a great friend of Canadian soccer, both international and from TFC. So we thought we'd bring on Brad to talk about TFC, but more about the fan perspective. Where are the fans at this point? I know there's been some real unrest the last few weeks, Brad, but at the same time, they're coming off an impressive win when there is Insigne, the much maligned Insigne, actually played really well. You're in the red patch section every single match. You travel with this team as well. Where are the fans? Where are the hardcore fans? Are they frustrated? Are they angry? Are they hopeful? Where are you at?
Well, they're not hopeful. And where I'm at is I'm basically at my, at the end of the tunnel right now. Like,
oh no,
I got a message the last game, the DC game, from a good friend who's in the South End. He said, "Are you here today?" I said, "I haven't been here since the home opener." He said, "Wow, wild times." And I said, "Yep." I'm like, the club has shown that they just don't seem to be committed to what they are talking about. Whenever they get behind a mic, whenever they send out an email, whenever they, try to say that they're changing or the culture, they need us, but they're not doing anything in the foreground that is showing any type of change that they speak about. And it all seems to be hollow words that supporters have had enough of over the last 4 years, and it's got to a breaking point where it's just like, it's not worth my time. It's not worth a lot of our members' time to put out the type of energy that's required in the South End and in all the stadium, for that matter, when we're not seeing the same type of energy being reciprocated from the team itself. And, there's a lot of hollow words that are spoken by the coach, by upper management. And when I look at it, I was the Red Patch Boys president for 4 years, from 2020 through COVID, back from COVID. And then just basically in year 4, which was midway through 2023, I just said, I've met with the front office. I've met with Jason Hernandez. I met with other, people as being a president of a supporters group, and they want to get feedback from our members and from our group. I just said, I just don't see what the plan is here. I don't see how you can talk one way and do something different.
Other like-minded fans like yourself who have been there from day one, but this season have not returned, and I guess waiting for that big moment. But are there others more than just yourself? There's
more. I think a lot of people hit their breaking point after the Montreal game, honestly, and it was just like this. There is nothing to play for. I did a little bit of math on the playoffs for this year, and I mean, playoffs are playoffs. Everyone should get in. Like, if you're a half decent team, you should be able to, finish top 9 in the league, a league that gets 9 teams in. The 9th place team right now is on pace for one of the highest points pace for a 9th place team in years, which is almost 50 points. Now I see like TFC is on like 10 points with 22 games left. They would have to average almost 1.8 points per game to make the playoffs again this year, which when people look at that, it's like, they haven't even hardly, been able to manage 1 point per game over the last 4 years. And now you're expecting almost double that in the next 22 games. I don't see where it's coming from. And a lot of people are looking at that and also realizing this is another lost season. And it just continues to be lost season over lost season. And it doesn't even look like the moves that they're making. Sure, they're making short-term moves with loans and, in contracts, but they said last year that, we're going to be doing stuff in the off season to make it easier, or not make it easier, but make it more, I guess the word is easier, make it easier to rearrange and replenish the roster. But I just don't see, I don't honestly believe that the person in charge of making those decisions is the right person, for the simple fact that Jason Hernandez, I met him, really nice guy. However, and a lot of people say that, I'm just not sure that he's the right guy to do that massive rebuild that this club deserves, when he was put in charge by one of arguably the worst presidents in finding talent in our franchise's history. Sure, he had the Javinko and the Altidore and Bradley years, but he also had a great guy in Tim Bezbachenko working right side by side of him. He had a guy like Tim Lewicki who could find those types of things. I give Bill Manning credit as the president, but there was a lot of other good brains with him. And right now I'm just like, he has appointed how many different managers, how many player signings has he signed that are just not worked out? And now he's given Jason Hernandez the wheels to the car. And I'm just like, the track record says, how is this possible?
But do you think in Jason's defense, he is so shackled by that big contract to Lorenzo Insigne, and there just isn't the room to navigate through a really important rebuilding off season until that deal is gone? Is there patience with that regard?
I get that, but then in the offseason, you said everything is on the table. And even Keith Pelly said in his end-of-year press conference, was straight out asked, if the board gave you the opportunity to buy out the Italians, would you do it? And there was a great quote that I think I still have even tagged in my Twitter. If I go to it, it said, the biggest takeaway, if we present a holistic plan with a deep strategy then I believe ownership will support the move. So where was the, deep strategy and, everything else in the offseason to do that? And it just doesn't seem like they were able to work around it. And even getting Insigne off the books, there's still loads of other contracts using GAM, TAM, all the MLS bucks, funny money that we have $0 of when that came out last week. I think TFC was one of the only clubs to have zero GAM left. So they have nothing left to spend. Like this summer, this is the team.
Yeah, this
Brad,
season is right. I'm sorry, go ahead, Wonga.
So I every time we have someone on, I always think of the tipping point, the moment of truth kind of thing. What was your tipping point where you went from I can't do this, like, hey, I'm all in, to I can't do this anymore? Was there a specific moment? And if there was, what was it?
2023 midway through was, but coming into this season, I literally said I was not going to go to any TFC games if Lorenzo Insigne was still on this team, because I was told throughout the offseason and in the press conference after last season, enough is enough. Buy this guy out. Do what you do. You got 10 million, 15, 20, whatever it is, get this guy out of the team. He is not part of the massive rebuild that they talk about to get in. And as the preseason went on, it looked like, okay, they're probably not going to take him out. And friends were like, are you still not coming to games? And I'm like, you know what? I'll adjust my fandom, and I'll say, as long as he's benched and he's not playing and he's not starting, I'll show up to games. So they started on the road. Insigne didn't play. I said, all right, I'm coming to the home opener. I came to the home opener. The very next game on the road, he plays, and I said, that's it. I'm out. I'm not putting up with this. And then I see him with the armband a couple of weeks ago, or maybe it was the Montreal game in the Canadian Championship. And I'm like, now you're giving this guy the armband after everything that, you've said, or, that's been spilled, behind the scenes in front of whatever. There's just, it was that breaking point, basically, when it's basically, words that are not true anymore. I don't believe anything that they kind of say.
Is that generally the feeling with all the fans about Insigne?
I would say so. I mean, I don't want to speak for all the fans, but it's sure, he scored a goal this week against a DC United team, but that's a bad DC United team. That's a team that they actually should have beat in the first game of the season. They were up 2-1 on that team, I believe, and drew 2-2. But I looked at that first game of the season when they played DC, and I said, this is a bad team. Like, they have Christian Benteke and a bunch of really young kids, like not a proven roster. And I said, cool, you just beat like another team that's not going to make the playoffs. Show me what you're going to do now. Like, this Cincinnati team they're playing on Wednesday has loads of talent up front. Now we're going to see, well, I mean, we could already see what they do against talented teams anyway, but, we might get a dose of reality again, reality check on Wednesday.
Brad, there's been so much focus on Insigne, and I think almost unfairly, but it almost disguises what's happening from a strategic standpoint with TFC. And you're talking about Pelly's words like deep strategy and holistic view, which to me was maybe just used to placate fans, right? And then like you get them to hang on until the beginning of the season. And you're even saying you shift a little bit in terms of your expectations. And as long as Insigne is benched, but even if he went away, is the organization doing enough in your estimation to rebuild meaningfully, even if they're hamstrung in terms of all the player acquisitions and no GAM? We know what they're up against, but what would they need to do in terms of an actionable step or strategy to win you back, Insigne aside?
Not bring back 80% of the roster next season. Like, when they said that they were going to do a full rebuild and everything was on the table, I was like, okay, there's going to be a lot of transactions in this offseason. And there was maybe like 3. Like, there was like Monlouis came in at center back. You brought in Corbianu and Bryn Holtzen, and that was it. Like, the rest of the core of the team was the exact same team. And I was like, okay, if you're doing a full rebuild, you need these players out of here. So why are you saying and the thing that was said in that press conference as well was Keith Pelley was like, we have to get it right before 2026 because we need to have this team, be, not a laughing stock when visitors come to Toronto and they're like, is there a football team here? And they're like, yeah, this crappy TFC team that won one championship and has been a disaster for, the 19 years of existence otherwise. And I just don't see this team being even close to being competitive with the type of roster that it has currently constructed. And even the signings that Jason Hernandez has made are, they're average, below average at best, honestly. Like there's nobody that he's brought in and I've gone, you know what, that was a real, throw something against the wall and actually hit. Like nothing is sticking to the wall.
You can turn around MLS teams quickly with the right signings. We've seen that. You don't need to, stick in the mire for years and rebuild through youth. You need youth, you need a young team, obviously, but you see it all the time. A couple of really great signings, you can have a competitive team.
Look what San Jose did. They were the
worst place.
Yeah, what they won the wooden spoon last year, and they are just like Arango and Joseph Martinez looks like he's revived in San Jose. Like it's not, and they even say it. They said, "Oh, this is like it's not hard to quickly turn around." Well, you're surely making it look like it's really hard to turn around.
So what do you need to see to return to the stands? Is that even possible this season, or are you? If there is not at all this season, even if they ditch Insigne this summer, if they find a way, no.
Like the only reason I'll come back, I'll be back the end of this month, and I'll be back in June. I have a couple of friends that I shared season tickets with in the past, and they've moved. One's moved to Australia, one's moved to Montreal, but they're coming back to visit. And the only reason I would go was just because that was a cool place to hang out with them. We had season tickets before, so when they're back, you know what, go back, hang out, drown in the misery of this this terrible
drown
team.
In the misery.
but that's about it. It's like there's no reason to go back except for the people, and that's honestly the only reason really to go back is the people in the stands.
But there must
Brad,
be...
other than Footy Prime, how are you getting your footy fix? What is taking Sharms and I talked about this yesterday, that we do a lot of sitting on the couch sometimes, maybe too much, while I've got to work today. So it's 4 hours of the morning. What are you filling your time with if it's not TFC? Because that was a big part of your life for a while. And right now it's not. Is something else. It's about opportunity costs as a fandom and creating fandom. And now you've been able to explore other opportunities. What are you doing now other, to fill that TFC void?
He's going to West Ham games.
It's true. I saw that.
Right, no, I'm just I'm putting a lot more energy into the Canadian national team. So
I saw that.
Yeah, I was in LA for the Nations League final for that. And that's another thing that it's disappointing about TFC is I would go when the schedule comes out in the winter, I would circle this calendar, be like, oh, Nashville away or LA away. Right. These are games I want to go to. I haven't been to a TFC away game since 2023 in Nashville, and every year I would at least do one away or two away trips for that. So I won't say that I'm obviously still following the club. I watch the games every game, but just not in the stands. I still watch it on TV. I still follow the club. So it's not that I've totally just disbanded them. It's just I'm just not showing up to games and paying the concession fees and everything else that goes into it and the time to actually get down there. So I'll go to my local pub, ask them to put on Apple TV, 2 hours, done, move on.
Mm-hmm. How difficult is it, Brad, to get everybody back? I mean, if they turn this thing around, these diehard fans, are they still there waiting to come back? I know that you would probably be back if things turn around, but is that generally the case throughout the fan base?
I think it is. I think it's just get it right. We'll always be there. It's just you got to get it right. I look at a great example is the LA Galaxy supporters, the LA Riot Squad, and I forget the other one, Angel City Brigade. They finally had enough of their ownership there and the dire years that they were having over and over and over again, and they finally just did a full. We're not coming back to games until one, the president is removed from his duties, and two, someone is brought in with extreme experience to take over the project. And they did it. They fired their manager, their president. The very next year, they won MLS Cup, and now, I mean, this year they're right back on the spoon. But at least they did get a cup. Like, I mean, at least they showed that they could turn it around. And I think, you know, that's something that, you know, the fans will always be there. It's just, you know, so at some point you just got to say, you know what, I'm stepping aside. It's almost like, you know, you're an adult and your kids grow up and it's like they're failing, and it's like, well, you got to let them fail, and then I'll pick them up, you know, once they're ready. So,
Brad, I want to ask you about something you hit on before about your possibility of returning to matches was linked with the people that you share the season tickets with. And Wonger touched upon it with the filling the TFC void. Like, it's that feeling of community. So performance aside and roster construction and player acquisitions aside, I know they're inextricably linked, but just from a community standpoint, in talking to the fan base and Pelly talking about wanting the team to not be a laughing stock when the world arrives in Canada for next year's World Cup, what could they be doing more from a community initiative or just acknowledgement of their fan base right now, performance aside?
Stop treating us like people who, you know, are easy to sway, I guess. Like, stop talking in a way that is like, talk is cheap. Actions speak louder than words, I think is the saying. So it's a lot of that. It's a lot of acknowledging. It's not even acknowledging. They keep on coming back and acknowledging, you know, that the fans in the South End, the fans in the stadium. I don't want to just say the South End itself. The fans are the heartbeat of the club. Well, if the fans are the heartbeat of the club, you've got to be doing more to, you know, just not be telling us stuff and not backing it up. So it's, at this point, it's more, you know, the action that you talk about needs to actually happen.
The banner issue the last couple of weeks, I know it was from section 114, I believe, who had history, right? There's more to it perhaps than we know. What was your thoughts on that? Was there solidarity between the other fan groups?
There was. I mean, it wasn't a full, like, I mean, we had spoken, you know, I'm not part of leadership anymore, but I do speak with, you know, our current leadership. And they do convey to our members what they're doing with other supporters groups and how they're, you know, making game day operations work and stuff like that. So they did, you know, all the groups did band together and say, you know what, this game, we're not going to bring any banners. We're not going to bring any flags. We're not going to have any capos. We're just going to be sit silent. And there was talk about, you know, a walkout, and it was like, you know, if you want to leave in the 70th minute, and I'm like, I pushed back. I'm like, well, if you want to leave you're giving people the opportunity to leave in the 70th minute as sort of a walkout, but you know, what if it's up 2-0? People aren't going to leave. Like, it's got to be, you know, it's got to be a unified South. It's still a fractured South in many ways, but I mean, the banner thing, you know, they did that, you know, 2 years ago. They had a massive banner out. I can't remember what it was, but it was outside the stadium. And I love the stuff, like the stuff that goes over the lakeshore, you know, on the bridge. You know, it just keeps telling a message, and I think that's the thing that supporters need to keep pushing to get out to, so that media keeps pushing that, because the last thing the front office wants is negative press. And it seems like more and more the TFC has been pushed out of the mainstream of sports in the city. But if you have negative press, that negative press really moves the needle more than any type of, like, you know, positive whatever. So I think, you know, that's got to continue until, you know, we really do see that there is actionable things happening.
You see the management dealing with this at the same level, because Toronto Maple Leafs sell out regardless. You know, they do well. The Raptors do well, but they're completely different animals compared to football. Do you think the management understands football enough to know that when things go bad, that fans react at a different level than we see in other sports here?
I think they do, but I think the way that they work within the MLS scheme of things is is the exact same, whether it be how they run their security, how they run, how they treat fans, in a different way. It's very corporate in that way, if that makes sense. That, if you're a Toronto Maple Leafs fan and you're in the Air Canada Centre, you get the same type of, they do have, obviously you have some more leeway in BMO Field with the flags and instruments and stuff like that maybe you wouldn't have that opportunity to do in other MLSC sporting arenas. But the way that everything is run is very corporate, strict in the way that it's run. So it doesn't really allow the full football experience, I guess you would say, if you watch how football is run in Europe or in South America. And I guess it tames it out a bit because you don't want to go too far off the line, but there's got to be some, leeway to that this, is different.
Hey, Brad, listen, I hope they get you back. I really do. I know how much you love this team deep down, and how much you love the sport. And when people like yourself are staying away, it's a real problem for ownership. So for you alone, TFC, please get this thing sorted out, because I can't handle seeing a broken Brad Humber.
Exactly.
It's time to turn this beast around. Thanks so much, mate. I really enjoyed this. Well, I didn't enjoy it. It was freaking depressing.
Yeah.
I enjoyed talking to you.
You know what? When they turn around, bring me back, and then I'll be in a much better mood, and I can tell you all the road trips that I'm going on and everything else.
Yes,
so.
We'll bring it back. More positive things.
Perfect.
Thanks, mate. Really appreciate it.
All right. Take care, guys.
Thanks, Brad.
So, yeah. That's Brad Humber. I tell you, I don't know if I know a bigger soccer fan than Brad Humber. Very few. And when he's staying away from this club. Now, on the other flip side, it's not necessarily easy to turn around a team just like that. It does take some time, especially when you have contracts, which are problems. I don't want to dwell on the Insigne. We've done that a million times already. But during the season, it's difficult to really do too much. Right now, of course, the way the windows work with the salary cap structure. But I think the concern is that there were, if not promises, there were suggestions that a lot would change this offseason, and it didn't, like you mentioned there. That's the problem. So it's a big summer, but an even bigger offseason coming up this winter, when less is owed to Insigne, right? Which maybe makes it easier to move him. If not this summer, then certainly in the offseason.
There are so many rules in MLS that just shows you, when they brought in Besnichenko, how great a job that he did, knowing all the little rules and how to get the GAM and the PAM and the
PAM. Just spray it everywhere.
And the salary cap. It's not an easy world, in the MLS when you have all those boundaries.
It disheartens me though when I see a fan being felt like he's a little broken from the loyalty that is given to clubs. In sales and marketing, we always talk about when you're putting a deal together, someone being in the funnel, and the sales funnel, the marketing funnel, it's all a step towards your front gate. And we do that with Footy Prime. So that's why we really go out of our way to create communication with the people, whether it's YouTube, whether it's responding to our idiocy, whether it's all the above, and creating community. And when you lose someone, it takes like 5 times more work to win them back, or 10 times more work. So if they're losing a Brad Humber, who's all in at one point, and now he's spending more time, and this is what's it's sad for them, when he's spending more time with the Canadian national teams. And I know that Craig was telling me that Brad is actually in a TSN promo and they had to take out, was that Brad, right, Craig? Like, this guy is a diehard footy fan and has given a lot to supporting TFC, the Red Patch Boys, all the above. And to lose him, that just shows you how many other people have been lost throughout this. And to win those people back, it's not as simple as just saying, hey, come on back, we got a winning team. There are those who are going to jump back. Most will have, and this is why I asked about what he's doing now. He's actually given more time to opportunity cost to the Canadian national team. And he's probably already been there. But it's also, I'm going to go to the pub. Maybe that pub changes his lifestyle, right? So it's the pub making the money on his turnstile entry, not TFC, not MLSC.
Yeah, those are all really good points. But I think if I'm somebody,
Dan.
not just to add to it, and actually I'm somebody who looks at things optimistically, or I try to usually. So from TFC's perspective, as a franchise, as an organization, Brad was talking about how corporate they are and maybe unilateral when they're thinking they need to bring in more football minds, that they're looking at these fans and these problems and they're finding solutions via a footballing person. I think that's really important. But I think the silver lining here is a guy like Brad, as you're saying, a football guy, they've maybe lost him. But I think overwhelmingly it's unrest, it's disillusionment, it's feeling like not disenfranchised, but disenchanted, certainly, right? But it's not apathy. I think once you get into apathy, then you're not winning those people back. But right now, there's still enough emotion in the anger that I think there's some good that could come from it, that if there's actionable change, that these people might start to come back. But they have to be really careful now, tread carefully, because once they don't give a fuck anymore, then you're screwed as a franchise.
Well, Brad's still watching the games, right? Every week.
Yeah.
Right. He ain't gone just yet. And I know he's angry and you can tell that sentiment is there, but they can get him back, clearly. Like I said, when he's not watching those games on Apple each week, watch out. That's a big problem.
He gets into apathy.
Apathy? Apathy? Oh, yeah, that's pretty good, that one. Even though I didn't
that was.
I heard myself saying it and I was like, should have kept it inside my brain.
No, that was a good one. But there is some apathy too, right? You see, I mean, other than Craig Forrest and his 5-star reviews of the Apple app.
Yeah, that's
there's
right.
a lot of apathy.
Anyway, interesting chat anyway. And I'm going to reach out to TFC again and try and get someone on to kind of just, I want to hear from them, right? We get these statements, these comments, these press conferences. I want to have a long format chat. And someone at the top.
We get Keith Pelly on.
Be amazing.
He's a Keith Pelly fan.
He is.
Keith Pelly, Craig Sharms?
Yeah. Keith Pelly hired me in 1998 to do the World Cup for TSN.
Well, time to return the favor.
I bet you if you go into your old archive of emails, you could probably find his email.
This is
He's had 5 jobs since then.
Stop.
It's probably keith.pelly@mlsc.ca or something.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Right. We'll figure it out. Just send a variety of options.
No. He goes by the Prez at MLSC with a Z.
Yeah. Obviously.
No, we'll go through the formal channels first. If that fails, then we'll go through Craig's personal Rolodex. He actually has a Rolodex, a real one.
Pelly@AOL.com.
Simpatico.
Excite.ca.
Okay, well that was Tuesday. We got a broadcast coming tomorrow, do we not?
Yes, broadcast tomorrow.
Bit of a rotating cast, and actually happy birthday to Rian Wilkinson and her twin sister Sarah. Her birthday was yesterday, but yeah, Rian is out, busy with the Welsh women's national team, and I think Claire Rustad might also be busy, being a doctor. So I might pull in some other friends.
Some strays of the show.
No, actually, I was catching strays earlier for you guys fat shaming other people. I was the one catching strays. But no, we might be bringing in maybe the likes of Signa Butler or Shireen Ahmed or maybe Cara Lang. But we've got a wide network in terms of the talent that's appeared in the broadcast in the past.
Nice.
Wide network. Be careful what you say.
That's right.
Get in trouble. All right. That was Footy Prime for a Tuesday. As mentioned, the broadcast is back tomorrow. We'll be back as well. There may be 2 dropping tomorrow. Is that right? Well,
no, we'll drop the other one on Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. Well, until then, make sure you like this and subscribe to us. Even if we offend you, we are sorry. So maybe less of the thumbs downs, but more of the thumbs ups. That'd be great. Until then, cheers for watching and listening. Bye-bye.
Oh, I've got to turn it off. This is where Dubs usually says something too.
I know. I think I've said enough.